Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, you know, one of the biggest criticisms of red flag laws, those who oppose it say, you know, a lot of stuff can just be fabricated. There's really no way to cross-examine the accuser. You can't really cross-examine a piece of paper, and you can be unfairly labeled, unfairly accused, and have your rights stripped of you. Well, that's not like that would ever really happen, though, right? Well, many of you may have seen this video kicking around the internet the last couple of days about an off-duty Pennsylvania state police officer who thought it would be best for him to go get an involuntary mental health commitment order against his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend and then go out and execute the warrant himself. Now, I had a chance to geek out on it. I did a lot of thinking about it. Didn't really think there was a lot of connection until I had a chance to read the probable cause affidavit. And then it got me thinking, you know, there's a lesson to be learned here, and it's a lesson that deals directly with red flag laws. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about what this incident tells all of us about red flag laws. Okay, so the story we are talking about is Pennsylvania State Police Officer Ronald Davis. Yes, I am going to use his name. I'm not going to use the victim's name, although it is easily ascertainable. But Officer Ronald Davis of the Pennsylvania State Police Department apparently got into an ongoing argument with his girlfriend who was living in a trailer on one of his properties. Now, in searching around other news stories, it also appears that Officer Ronald Davis is also married. This was not his wife. I don't know whether that to be true or not, but take that for what it's worth. Okay, now, in an ongoing dispute with his girlfriend, Officer Davis decided to go to another detachment of the same police agency he works for and ask the officers there to apply for an involuntary mental health commitment order. Now, the troopers at that particular location were not too thrilled about doing it, and because Officer Davis had stated that he had personal knowledge of this, that they encouraged him to do it. Now, he didn't at first want to make this report because he didn't want to drive all the way to the hospital to do it, but once he learned that he could do it by phone, oh, he dialed right on up and he made that report. Now, understand, under Pennsylvania involuntary mental health commitment law, these types of petitions can be brought by one of two individuals, either people who have firsthand personal knowledge that the person is in distress, or can be brought by a court official or law enforcement officer or medical professional. Now, when Officer Davis decided to inform the hospital and attempt to get that warrant, did he report this as a concerned individual who had personal knowledge? No, he reported this as a member of law enforcement, and that's important. I want you to remember that because we're going to circle back on that in a second. Now, after completing his phone call and the court rubber stamping his involuntary commitment order, well, then the good officer decided that, you know, he'd just deal with it himself, and he went out to go execute the warrant, which of course led to this.
I don't need help. I need to get away from you. No. No. This isn't normal. I don't care what anybody says. Can I please stand up? Okay. I'm not going to any jail. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going anywhere. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What is wrong with you? You can't just tackle me like that. Get off of me. I can't breathe. Why don't you listen to that?
Now, this has been all the talk of the internet the last few days, and obviously, as we now know, Officer Davis has been charged with at least 4 separate criminal offenses because of this. Now, I had an opportunity to take a look at both the Pennsylvania involuntary mental health commitment and to do some research on Pennsylvania red flag laws. And as it turns out, Pennsylvania is actually a state that does not have red flag laws. Now, there's been a big push, and they've been kicking around in the state legislature for a couple of years. Most recent newspaper article I found about it, though, had the opposition, those on the GOP side of things, stating the following. Senator Lisa Baker, who heads the Judiciary Committee, has voiced concerns about red flag laws in the past. She brought up the possibility of people unfairly labeling others as high risk and calling in law enforcement, and those being served the order not having adequate recourse to defend themselves. Well, come on, Senator Baker. It's not like any of that would actually happen, would it? Oh, well, that's where we now turn to the probable cause affidavit on this particular case, and the fact that this was a report that was done by a jilted soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, but reported as coming from a law enforcement officer. The probable cause affidavit, which will make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, reads as follows. On Monday, 8/21/23 at approximately 1100 hours, off-duty Trooper Ronald Davis arrived at Troop H, Lycan Station, 4673 State Route 209, Washington Township. Davis then asked if members of the Troop H Lycan Station could respond to the victim's location and get her committed with an involuntary mental health commitment. Corporal AST related that Davis did not want to drive to the hospital in Harrisburg to petition for the involuntary mental health commitment as he had plans to cut grass. Corporal AST advised Davis that he could contact crisis over the phone. So what you got is an off-duty officer coming into a separate station and asking the officers there to petition for an involuntary mental health commitment. When they decline to do so, they then give him the means that he can do it himself. And even though he has a really important date with his lawnmower that day, he decides, oh, I can do this on phone, and he hops on the phone right away. This is what else the probable cause affidavit says. Davis contacted Dauphin County Crisis Intervention via telephone. During a follow-up interview, Corporal Goodman learned that Davis identified himself as a trooper. However, he was contacting them regarding a personal matter. Additionally, he emailed a synopsis for the petition. Through investigation, it was discovered that Davis used his state-assigned email. Davis electronically signed the email as Ronald K. Davis and provided his personal address and phone number. And again, I want you to focus on the fact that this petition was made supposedly by a law enforcement officer. A short time later, the involuntary commitment order warrant was issued. How did Trooper Davis react? The interaction concluded when Davis took a copy of the involuntary mental commitment from Trooper Albegdo and stated, quote, "I'll take care of it myself." Trooper Davis was witnessed on closed-circuit security footage leaving Trooper H. Lycans at 13:17 hours holding the involuntary mental health commitment. Trooper Davis then drives immediately to a location where he believes he will find the victim. He employs the services of a civilian, a Mr. Teeter, to come along, and then once he confronts the victim, he actually, this is fantastic, he actually asks the gentleman to videotape the confrontation. Very Mr. McMichael-like in the Ahmaud Arbery case. This guy literally videotapes his own confession to the crime. Then, of course, we have this video, which has, of course, spread like wildfire around the internet. We see it, all the things and all of the power and control and everything like that. Now, what else does the probable cause affidavit tell us? Because it gets more disturbing from there. Throughout viewing the footage, the victim appears to genuinely lack understanding on why she is being restrained. So many of you are probably now thinking, okay, but once she got to the hospital, they checked her out, everything was fine, and she got kicked loose, right? Wrong. She spent 72 hours involuntarily committed to a mental health hospital, okay? And the probable cause affidavit specifically states, on 8/23/23, Corporal Goodman contacted Lehigh Valley Hospital to verify if the involuntary mental health commitment was upheld by the hospital. It was discovered that the commitment was upheld. Corporal Goodman spoke with the attending physician with the permission of the victim. The attending physician confirmed that she was being held for liability purposes due to the agencies involved, the affiant being a Pennsylvania state trooper, her being brought from another county, and the context of the messages. So the reasons by which the hospital decided we're going to keep her here for 72 hours against her will was all of the actions and communications by Trooper Davis. Now, would he just make any of this stuff up just to be mean, just to be nefarious? Well, according to the victim in the probable cause affidavit, the following conversations had previously occurred. The victim stated during the course of their relationship that Davis made statements threatening to paint her as crazy. This included, quote, "I know you're not crazy, I'll paint you as crazy," and, quote, "I know the law." And finally, in the coup de grace of this probable cause affidavit, the Pennsylvania State Police finds about one of their very own the following. While Trooper Davis provided text messages from the victim to Troop H station members and purported them to be suicidal, he failed to provide the full context of those text messages. In fact, the text messages were the culmination of a larger domestic dispute between he and the victim. Taken in that context, the text revealed her frustration with Trooper Davis and his controlling behavior and her desire to break off the relationship, not a true desire to harm herself. This omission by Trooper Davis was critical in securing the involuntary mental health commitment. And finally, the Pennsylvania State Police found, your affiants assert that this further highlights Trooper Davis's intent to use the system to locate, control, and assault the victim rather than to protect her from self-harm. Additionally, Davis's actions resulted in the victim being committed into a psychiatric facility for 72 hours against her will and under false pretenses. Now, you can see what the big problem is. The big problem is all of this was fabricated, and because it came from a law enforcement officer, even though he was not meant to be holding himself out as a law enforcement officer, it resulted in this woman being essentially assaulted, imprisoned, kidnapped, and then committed to a mental health hospital for 72 hours against her will, all under the false pretenses of a Pennsylvania state police officer who wanted nothing more than control over his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend. Now, can we see this dynamic playing out in other ways when relationships are falling apart, when things are getting really terrible between a couple, where false allegations could be made about threats and access to firearms? And this is the exact reason why red flag laws are constitutionally deficient. While I understand that the meaning and the purpose is good in nature, when you allow a court to take an action based on one side of the story, written only down in paper, with no ability to cross-examine, with no ability to put on your own evidence, that person is deprived of anything remotely close to procedural due process. And for that reason, and that reason alone, this is the biggest problem with red flag laws. What we can learn about this incident is this, is that unless we change structurally and procedurally how we execute these red flag laws, these absolute unconstitutional deprivation of rights can continue based upon false allegations which are merely spit out onto a piece of paper. Listen, you may have more questions about this issue or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights. You guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is right down there in the description box. Now, in the meantime, let's everyone remember that part of being a lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.